Welcome, dear listeners, to Avenue of Words. Today I'm bringing you an inspiring story about one of history's greatest inventors, Thomas Edison. This isn't just a biography, it's a powerful English learning experience designed to improve your listening skills while uncovering the remarkable journey of a man who changed our world forever. As you listen, you'll encounter useful English phrases, expand your vocabulary, and absorb grammar naturally through context. And perhaps most importantly, you'll discover how Edison's persistence and positive mindset can inspire your own English learning journey. So, sit back, relax, and let's explore the fascinating life of Thomas Edison together. Early life. Thomas Alva Edison was born on February 11, 1847, in Milan, Ohio. Picture America at that time, a nation without electricity, telephones, or recorded music. It was a simpler world, where candlelight illuminated homes and entertainment meant gathering around to tell stories. Thomas was the youngest of 7 children. His father, Samuel Edison, worked as a shingle maker, while his mother, Nancy, had been a school teacher. From an early age, Thomas showed extraordinary curiosity. He was always asking questions. Why does the sky change color at sunset? How do birds fly? What makes sound travel? But Thomas's early education wasn't smooth sailing. When he was 7 years old, his family moved to Port Huron, Michigan. There, Thomas attended school for just 3 months before his teacher labeled him difficult and distracted. The truth was that Thomas learned differently from other children. He needed to understand the why behind everything. When his teacher couldn't answer his endless questions, young Thomas quickly lost interest in classroom learning. School struggles. In self-education, Thomas's mother, Nancy, was shocked when she heard the teacher call her son addled, meaning confused or unable to think clearly. She immediately pulled him out of school, declaring, "My son's mind doesn't work slowly. It works differently." From that day forward, Nancy became Thomas's teacher. A former educator herself, she understood that her son needed a different approach to learning. She encouraged his curiosity rather than stifling it. She brought him books on science, history, and literature, allowing him to explore subjects that captured his imagination. Thomas devoured these books, often reading for 12 hours straight. By age 11, he had created a small laboratory in his family's basement, where he conducted chemistry experiments. He saved every penny he earned to buy chemicals and equipment, showing remarkable determination for such a young boy. This period of home education would prove crucial for Thomas. Without the constraints of traditional schooling, his mind was free to wander, question, and discover. He developed a lifelong habit of self-education that would serve him well throughout his career. First jobs and early entrepreneurship life took an unexpected turn for Thomas when he was 12 years old. His father's business struggled, and the family faced difficult financial times. Thomas knew he needed to help support his family, so he convinced his parents to let him work. He secured a job as a candy butcher on the Grand Trunk Railroad, selling newspapers, snacks, and candy to passengers. But Thomas wasn't content with just selling items. He saw bigger opportunities. He noticed that passengers were eager for news as they traveled between towns. Showing remarkable entrepreneurial spirit, Thomas convinced a local newspaper editor to give him newspapers on credit. He would then sell them on the train for a profit. But his real breakthrough came when the Civil War broke out in 1861. Thomas realized that passengers were desperate for the latest war news. Using his savings, he purchased a small printing press, set it up in the baggage car of the train, and began publishing his own newspaper called the Grand Trunk Herald. At just 15 years old, Thomas was writing, editing, printing, and selling his own newspaper while traveling the railway. A life-changing incident. One day, while working on the train, Thomas noticed a young child wandering dangerously close to the tracks. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and pulled the child to safety just as a train was approaching. The child's father was a station agent named J.U. Mackenzie. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Mackenzie offered to teach Thomas telegraph operation as a reward. This opportunity would change the course of Thomas's life forever. The telegraph was the cutting-edge technology of that era, similar to how the internet revolutionized our modern world. Thomas threw himself into learning this new skill with characteristic enthusiasm. He practiced for hours every day, determined to master the complex system of dots and dashes that made up Morse code. Within a few months, he had become proficient enough to work as a telegraph operator. This new skill opened doors for Thomas. At 16, he began working as a telegraph operator, traveling throughout the Midwest. This job exposed him to the latest technology and communication systems of the time, further fueling his curiosity and innovative thinking. The budding inventor. By the time Thomas was 20, he had become an accomplished telegraph operator, but his mind was already turning toward invention. Working with telegraphs day and night, he began thinking of ways to improve the technology. In 1868, at the age of 21, Thomas created his first patented invention, an electronic vote recorder designed for legislative bodies. The machine would allow legislators to press a button at their desk to cast their vote, rather than shouting aye or nay. Thomas was proud of his creation and expected it to be enthusiastically received. However, when he demonstrated the invention to lawmakers, they rejected it. They explained that they actually preferred the slower voting method because it gave them time for political maneuvering. Thomas was deeply disappointed, but he learned a valuable lesson. Inventions need to solve real problems that people want solved. From this experience, Thomas established his guiding principle as an inventor. Anything that won't sell, I don't want to invent. This practical approach would serve him well throughout his career and lead to inventions that truly changed people's lives. Moving to New York. In 1869, Thomas decided to move to New York City. The bustling metropolis was the perfect place for an ambitious young inventor. With just a few dollars in his pocket, he arrived in the city determined to make his mark. Telegraph experience quickly landed him a job at the Gold Indicator Company, which provided stock prices to brokerage firms. On his third day at work, disaster struck. The main telegraph transmitter broke down. The entire financial district was thrown into chaos without access to current stock prices. While other employees panicked, Thomas calmly stepped forward. He had been studying the machine and understood its mechanics. Within minutes, he had repaired the broken transmitter, restoring the vital flow of information. The company's president, General Marshall Lefferts, was so impressed by Thomas's quick thinking that he asked him to build an improved version of the machine. Thomas worked through the night and presented his new design the next morning. Lefferts was amazed and immediately hired Thomas as a supervisor at the substantial salary of $300 per month, equivalent to about $6,000 today. Establishing his own workshop. With his new salary, Thomas was able to save money and eventually establish his own workshop in Newark, New Jersey. He gathered a team of skilled machinists and electricians who shared his passion for innovation. The workshop quickly became known for improving existing telegraph equipment. But Thomas had bigger dreams. He wanted to create inventions that would transform everyday life. He established a personal goal to produce a minor invention every 10 days and a major invention every 6 months. This disciplined approach to creation would soon yield remarkable results. In 1874, Thomas invented the quadruplex telegraph, which could send 4 messages simultaneously over a single wire. This revolutionized communication by quadrupling the capacity of existing telegraph lines. Western Union purchased the rights to this invention for $10,000, a considerable sum at that time. With this success, Thomas was finally able to devote himself full-time to invention. He decided to create a dedicated invention factory, a place designed specifically for creative work and collaborative problem-solving. Menlo Park, the invention factory. In 1876, Thomas established his famous laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey. This was an unprecedented concept, the world's first industrial research laboratory. Before this, invention was typically a solitary pursuit. Thomas changed that by gathering talented individuals who could work together to solve problems. The Menlo Park Laboratory was a 2-story building filled with every kind of scientific equipment imaginable. There were chemicals, books, electrical instruments, and various mechanical devices. Thomas carefully selected workers who had specific skills in areas like glass blowing, precision mechanics, and electrical engineering. Thomas created an environment where experimentation was encouraged and failure was seen as a stepping stone to success. His favorite saying was, "We haven't failed. We've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This positive perspective on failure created a unique atmosphere at Menlo Park. The laboratory quickly became known as the Invention Factory. Thomas's goal was ambitious. He wanted to produce a minor invention every 10 days and a major invention every 6 months. This systematic approach to creativity was revolutionary and produced remarkable results. The phonograph, a magical invention. In 1877, Thomas invented something that would astonish the world, the phonograph. This device could record sound and play it back, something that had never been achieved before. Thomas's initial idea was quite simple. If telegraph messages could be recorded on paper tape, why couldn't sound be recorded on a similar medium? He built a device with a cylindrical drum covered in tinfoil. When someone spoke into the mouthpiece, a needle would create indentations in the tinfoil corresponding to the sound waves. To play back the sound, another needle would trace over these indentations, recreating the original sound. On December 6, 1877, Thomas tested the machine by recording himself reciting, "Mary Had a Little Lamb." When his workers heard the machine play back Thomas's voice, they were astonished. One worker said it was like hearing a ghost speak. Nothing like this had ever existed before. News of the invention spread rapidly. Thomas was invited to demonstrate the phonograph at the White House for President Rutherford B. Hayes. The press dubbed Thomas the Wizard of Menlo Park, and he became internationally famous overnight. People were amazed that sound could be captured and preserved. The Light Bulb Challenge. While the phonograph brought Thomas fame, his greatest challenge was still ahead. In the late 1870s, several inventors were working on creating an electric light system. Arc lights existed but were too bright and dangerous for home use. The race was on to develop a practical incandescent light bulb. Thomas announced his intention to create an affordable electric light system for homes and businesses. Many scientists believed this was impossible. Some newspapers ridiculed him, calling his idea Edison's folly. But Thomas was undeterred by criticism. He had a clear vision of how electric light could transform society. In October 1879, Thomas began his serious work on the light bulb. The basic concept was simple. Electricity passing through a thin filament would cause it to glow. The challenge was finding a filament material that would glow brightly without quickly burning out. Thomas and his team tested thousands of materials as potential filaments. They tried platinum, various woods, and even human hair. Each material was carefully tested with detailed records kept of how long it lasted and how brightly it glowed. This methodical approach exemplified Thomas's belief that invention was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. The breakthrough moment. After more than 200 experiments spanning many months, Thomas's team made a breakthrough. They discovered that a carbonized bamboo filament could last over 200 hours. This was the durable, practical filament they had been searching for. On October 21, 1879, Thomas demonstrated the first practical incandescent light bulb. The bulb glowed steadily for 13.5 hours before burning out. Thomas knew he had created something that would change the world forever. The age of electric light had begun. News of Thomas's success spread rapidly. J.P. Morgan, the famous banker, was one of the first to have Edison's lighting system installed in his home. Soon, wealthy New Yorkers were clamoring to have their homes wired for electric light. But Thomas had a bigger vision. He wanted to bring electric light to everybody, not just the wealthy. To achieve this vision, Thomas needed to create an entire electrical distribution system. He designed and built the world's first power plant on Pearl Street in Manhattan. On September 4, 1882, Thomas threw the switch that provided electricity to 85 buildings in Lower Manhattan. People gathered on the E streets to marvel at the tiny suns glowing in windows. Edison's electric world. Thomas's success with the light bulb was just the beginning. He realized that electricity could power much more than lights. He envisioned a world where electricity would be as common in homes as water, transforming daily life in countless ways. To achieve this vision, Thomas created the Edison Electric Light Company, which later became General Electric. He designed electrical generators, distribution systems, and meters to measure electricity usage. He also created dozens of electrical appliances to create demand for electricity. Thomas invented electric fans, electric heating systems, and even an electric pen that could make copies of documents. He built the first electrical power plants in cities across America and eventually around the world. Within a decade, what had once seemed like magic was becoming an ordinary part of urban life. Not content with these achievements, Thomas continued to innovate. In 1887, he built an expanded laboratory in West Orange, New Jersey. This massive facility covered several acres and included multiple buildings. It was here that Thomas perfected many of his existing inventions and created new ones. Later years and legacy. As Thomas entered his 60s, he remained as active and creative as ever. When World War I broke out in 1914, Thomas was already 67 years old. Still, he worked with the U.S. government, developing defensive technologies and advocating for American preparedness. Despite his age, Thomas continued to work long hours in his laboratory. His friend Henry Ford built a recreation of the Menlo Park Laboratory at Greenfield Village in Michigan, preserving Thomas's legacy for future generations. In his later years, Thomas became interested in finding a domestic source of rubber, as international supplies were unreliable. He tested thousands of plants to find one that could produce rubber efficiently. This project, though less successful than his earlier work, demonstrated his tireless curiosity and determination. By the time of his death on October 18, 1931, at the age of 84, Thomas Edison had received 1,093 U.S. patents. His inventions had transformed modern life in countless ways. Electric light, recorded sound, motion pictures, and countless other innovations had changed how people lived, worked, and entertained themselves. Edison's approach to life and work. What made Thomas Edison so extraordinarily successful? It wasn't just his intelligence, though he was certainly brilliant. It was his approach to work and life that set him apart. Here are some key principles that guided Thomas's remarkable career. First, Thomas believed in the power of persistence. He famously said, "Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time." When faced with challenges, Thomas didn't see them as failures, but as discoveries of what didn't work. Second, Thomas valued practical knowledge over theoretical understanding. He often said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This practical approach meant he was constantly learning from each experiment, regardless of the outcome. Third, Thomas understood the importance of teamwork. Although he's often portrayed as a solitary genius, Thomas built teams of talented specialists who worked collaboratively. He created environments where creativity could flourish, and diverse skills could complement each other, learning from Edison's example. Thomas Edison's life offers powerful lessons for all of us, especially those learning a new skill like English. Just as Thomas approached invention with persistence and positivity, we can approach language learning with the same mindset. When you struggle with English pronunciation or grammar, remember Thomas's approach to failure. Each mistake is simply discovering one way that doesn't work. Each conversation where you don't understand everything is an opportunity to learn. Thomas didn't expect immediate success with his inventions. He knew that mastery required time and practice. Similarly, language learning is a journey that requires patience and consistent effort. Every day of practice brings you closer to fluency. Thomas also understood the importance of practical application. He didn't just theorize about electricity, he built working systems. Similarly, the best way to learn English is by using it in real-life situations. Reading, listening, speaking, and writing regularly will help you develop practical language skills. Conclusion. As we conclude our journey through Thomas Edison's remarkable life, I hope you've not only improved your English listening skills, but also found inspiration in his story. Thomas proved that with dedication, resilience, and a positive mindset, extraordinary achievements are possible. Remember, Thomas wasn't born a genius. He became one through curiosity, hard work, and persistence. His early struggles in school might have defined him, but instead they motivated him to find his own path to learning and success. The next time you face challenges in your English learning journey, think of Thomas Edison. Remember how he viewed each setback as a stepping stone to success. Consider his words. Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Your English learning journey may sometimes feel difficult, but with persistence and the right mindset, you'll continue to improve. Each day of practice, each conversation, each new word learned is bringing you closer to your goal. Thank you for joining me on Avenue of Words today. If this story inspired you, please hit the like button and share it with someone who might need encouragement on their English learning journey. And don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories, useful English phrases, and practical language learning tips. Until next time, keep practicing, stay curious, and never give up on your dreams. The best is yet to come.